I told my husband one thing. Just one. Don't bring your female boss to your birthday dinner. He laughed it off, called me jealous, paranoid. Then he made her his honored guest. When the night ended, she stormed out in tears. And her lawyer? He just called me this morning. Now everyone's asking, what did I do to make her lose control? If you bring Michelle to your birthday dinner, I will make sure you regret it. The words came out of my mouth before I could second guess them. My husband, Sean, didn't even look up from his phone. He just laughed. It was that hollow sound that had replaced the genuine warmth I used to know. He just kept scrolling through whatever was more important than this conversation, more important than us. I sat across from him at our kitchen table on what should have been a normal Wednesday morning. The sun was coming through the window, lighting up the gray threads in his dark hair. They seemed to multiply every time I really looked at him. His coffee sat untouched in the ceramic mug I'd given him last Christmas, the one with his initials in gold that cost me more than I wanted to admit. It was cold by now, but he hadn't noticed. He never noticed anything anymore, not unless it came through his phone screen or had Michelle's name attached to it. I'd been rehearsing those words for 3 days, testing different versions in my head while I drove to work, while I showered, while I lay awake next to him at night. I measured every syllable. I couldn't sound hysterical. I couldn't sound emotional. I couldn't give him any opening to dismiss me. My voice came out exactly the way I wanted it to. Quiet. Steady. The same tone I use at work when I'm documenting evidence that will eventually dismantle someone's entire case. But Sean just laughed. Jesus, Jane, you sound paranoid, he said, finally glancing up. Those blue eyes used to make my stomach flip. Now they just made me feel sick. There was nothing behind them when he looked at me anymore. Just irritation, like I was interrupting him. Michelle is my boss, he continued, already looking back down at his screen. It's a work dinner as much as it is my birthday. You know how important this promotion is. I need her there. The way he said need made my jaw clench, like it was a simple fact I was too stupid or too jealous to understand. Like working as a litigation paralegal for 12 years hadn't taught me anything about reading people, about recognizing when professional boundaries had been crossed, and then completely demolished. I set my own coffee mug down on the marble countertop. The soft click felt too loud in the silence. My coffee had gone cold, too. I kept my hands wrapped around it, just needing something solid to hold on to while I watched my marriage dissolve in real time. It's not a work dinner, Sean. It's your 40th birthday. At Marcello's. The restaurant where you proposed to me 9 years ago. The reservation is under our name, not your company's. And if you make her your guest of honor while I sit there playing the supportive wife, we're done. He rolled his eyes. Actually, rolled his eyes like I was being dramatic. You're being ridiculous. Michelle's been instrumental in my career. She's mentored me. Having her there shows respect. You'd understand if you weren't so threatened by successful women. That was Sean's specialty now, gaslighting, turning every legitimate concern I raised into proof of my personal inadequacy. I was never worried about something real. I was always jealous, insecure, threatened. The fact that Michelle Castellano, his 47-year-old boss, the regional director of operations at Brennan Logistics, had been texting my husband at 11 p.m. with messages like, thinking about our strategy session tomorrow, followed by a winking emoji, that apparently meant nothing. I was just being dramatic. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Do you believe in loyalty? Do you believe that boundaries matter? If you've ever been betrayed or even just felt that sickening twist in your gut when you know something is wrong, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't let what happened to me happen to you unprotected. This channel is about getting justice. If you're not subscribing, head to the comments and tell me why you're siding with the cheaters. I'm genuinely curious. I'd been watching it happen for months, documenting it, the way I was trained to document everything. The cologne was the first thing. Tom Ford, expensive, subtle, the kind that lingers. I'd never bought it for him. When I asked about it, he just shrugged. A colleague recommended it. He didn't say which one. I just made a mental note. Then came the haircuts. Sean used to be an every 6 weeks kind of guy. Suddenly he was going every 2 weeks. His hair was perfectly styled, his beard, precision trimmed. He started buying new clothes, button-downs in colors he'd never worn, pants that actually fit, instead of the baggy crap he'd been wearing since we got married. He was rebuilding himself, piece by piece, into someone I barely recognized, someone who cared about impressing a person who wasn't his wife. I watched it all and said nothing. I just took notes. I photographed receipts when I found them in his jacket pockets. I documented dates, times, changes in behavior. I built my case. Patience, precision, the understanding that one piece of evidence means nothing. But 50 pieces? 50 pieces create a pattern nobody can explain away. What Sean didn't know, what he couldn't know because he'd stopped really seeing me months ago, was that 3 months earlier, I'd filed an anonymous HR complaint against Michelle Castellano. I used a burner email. I filled the complaint with details I'd gathered from Sean's own careless comments about office politics, things he'd mentioned without realizing what he was revealing. The complaint was professional. It alleged Michelle showed preferential treatment to male employees she found attractive, that she blurred professional boundaries, that she'd been the subject of whispered concerns for years, but nobody wanted to risk their career. I attached what little evidence I could, vague references to late-night texts and inappropriate social interactions. It went nowhere, of course. It was anonymous. The evidence wasn't concrete enough. But I knew it was sitting in a file somewhere in HR, a red flag, a time bomb, something that would become relevant later, when I had more ammunition. I'd learned something crucial in my 12 years in litigation. People who make threats, they rarely follow through. They yell, they draw lines in the sand, they make ultimatums, they'll walk back as soon as things calm down. But people who make promises, real promises, stated calmly and clearly, with full intention, those people always follow through. Sean stood up from the table, his cold coffee still untouched. He was already absorbed in his phone again, scrolling through notes about his birthday dinner, guest list, menu, seating arrangements. He'd reserved the private dining room at Marcello's 2 weeks ago. I knew because I'd seen the confirmation email, the same private dining room where he proposed to me. Now he was using that room to turn 40, treating it like a corporate event. Custom menu, premium wine pairings that cost more per bottle than our weekly groceries. He was even hiring a professional photographer. Apparently, turning 40 required the same level of visual evidence as a wedding. I'd seen his guest list too, 14 people, colleagues from work, friends from the new gym he'd joined, people I'd never even met, his brother, Denzel, who'd never liked me and had stopped pretending, and right at the top of the list, her name circled twice in his notes app, Michelle Castellano. While Sean planned his party, I was making my own preparations. I scheduled coffee with Queen Mendoza. Queen and I worked at the same firm years ago. She was a senior partner now, specialized in employment law and workplace harassment. She had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. I was building my case. I was collecting the receipts. You know who else believes in receipts? This channel. We document stories of justice step by step, so you can see exactly how it's done. If you don't subscribe, you're basically telling the world you're okay with people getting away with it. You're letting them win. Prove you're one of the good ones. Hit subscribe. If not, I want to see you in the comments explaining exactly why you support betrayal. Go on, I'm waiting. I met Queen at a cafe 40 minutes from both our offices, some generic spot in a neighborhood neither of us ever went to. So, she said, leaning back, is this hypothetical? Not exactly. She studied me. Queen was sharp. She didn't need me to spell it out. If someone in authority is having an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate, I asked, and it gets exposed publicly in a way that embarrasses the company, what happens? Queen smiled, no humor in it. Depends on the company's policies, but typically, if there's documented evidence, the company moves fast. Immediate investigation, suspension pending review. If the evidence is damning, termination. The higher up you are, the harder you fall. Companies don't play around with this anymore, Jane. One viral moment, one public scandal, and their reputation is destroyed. They'll sacrifice anyone to contain the dumpster fire. What kind of evidence? Documentation, she said. Texts, emails, expense reports, witness testimony. Anything that establishes a pattern. The more you have, the less wiggle room they have. She looked at me carefully. Whatever you're planning, make sure you're protected. Document everything. Queen, I said. Documentation is what I do. Sean spent the next 2 weeks planning his dinner with an intensity I hadn't seen him apply to anything involving me in years. I watched from the periphery, invisible in my own home. He obsessed over the seating chart. I found 4 different versions of it in the trash. Each one positioned Michelle immediately to his right, in the spot that traditionally would have been mine. I was relegated to the middle of the table, sandwiched between his brother Denzel and someone named George from accounting. I heard him on the phone with Marcello's adjusting the menu. They needed to add a seafood course, he explained, because his guest of honor loved oysters. He didn't mention that his wife was allergic to shellfish. I watched all of this, and the anger I'd felt just cooled. It wasn't anger anymore. It was calculation. Denzel called on Thursday. "So, Jane," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Sean tells me you're feeling a little insecure about his boss coming to dinner." I stopped chopping vegetables for another dinner Sean wouldn't be home to eat. Sean said that. "Yeah. Look, I get it. Michelle is successful, she's confident, she's probably everything you wish you could be. But maybe you should work on yourself instead of making Sean's big night about your insecurities." I thanked him for calling and added his name to the mental list of people who would learn the truth too late. That night, after Sean came home at 11 claiming he'd been working late, after he'd showered and fallen asleep, I took his phone. I knew his passcode. He thought I didn't. I photographed everything. The texts between him and Michelle, starting professional 6 months ago and slowly shifting. The 11 p.m. messages, the inside jokes. The encrypted folder on my laptop was growing. 173 items, screenshots of texts, copies of expense reports for dinners for two at restaurants I'd never heard of, bank statements with cash withdrawals, credit card charges at hotels during times he'd worked late. Photos from his company's internal network, with Michelle's flirty comments and heart emojis. Pictures from team events where they stood just a little too close. By the time his birthday arrived, I would have everything. Not just suspicions, not just a gut feeling. I would have documentation, evidence, proof. 10 days left. 10 days until I kept my promise. The night of the dinner, my hands were shaking. I was about to walk into the lion's den, but I had a plan. I had my evidence. Are you prepared? Do you have a plan for when things go wrong in your life? Subscribing to this channel is step 1. It's your insurance policy against betrayal. Every video is a lesson in how to protect yourself. If you choose not to subscribe, well, that's a risk, a big one. If you're brave enough to take that risk, go to the comments and tell me why you'd rather walk into a fight with no weapons. I dare you. The night of Sean's birthday, I stood in our bedroom watching him in the mirror as he adjusted the tie on his brand new charcoal gray suit. "You look nice," I said. He glanced at me. "Thanks. You should probably wear the blue dress, the one with the sleeves. Not the black one that made me feel confident. The blue one, conservative, forgettable, appropriate for someone meant to fade into the background." I wore the blue dress. I drove myself. Sean needed to get there early. I sat in my car for 5 full minutes, my phone fully charged. The encrypted folder backed up to 3 separate cloud servers. Everything was ready. The private dining room at Marcello's looked expensive. Black and gold balloons, white roses everywhere, and the name cards in elaborate calligraphy. I found mine exactly where I knew it would be, middle of the table between Denzel and George from accounting. Sean's card was at the head of the table, and immediately to his right, in the spot that every wedding, every family dinner, every rule of etiquette dictated belonged to the spouse, was Michelle's name. He'd really done it. He'd put her in my spot. I took out my phone and photographed the seating arrangement, wide shot, close-ups, added them to the folder, time-stamped, seating chart, spouse displaced, boss positioned in traditional spouse location, guests started arriving. I played the part, smiled, made small talk. Then, at 7:32 p.m., Michelle arrived. I know the exact time because I heard Sean's voice change. She wore a deep burgundy dress, cut low. She carried herself like the rules just didn't apply to her. Her husband wasn't with her. Sean practically ran to her. He took her coat, complimented her loud enough for everyone to hear, and then guided her around the room, his hand resting on the small of her back. It was a casual touch, familiar. "And you remember my wife, Jane?" he said when they got to me, like I was an afterthought. "Of course," Michelle said, giving me a firm, confident handshake. "Lovely to see you again." "You look beautiful," I said. "Thank you. So do you." She didn't mean it. Her eyes barely registered my forgettable blue dress. The photographer Sean hired was already working. I saw him get a shot of Sean and Michelle at the bar, their heads bent close together, smiling. I made sure I was in none of those photos. At 8 p.m., we sat. I watched Sean pull out Michelle's chair for her. My chair. I sat between Denzel and George. George, the accountant, tried to splain blockchain technology to me. I nodded and thought about the evidence folder on my phone. The main course came, filet mignon, and of course, the seafood platter for Michelle. I watched her eat the oysters. I watched Sean watch her eat them. The photographer moved around, capturing it all. Their body language told a story any reasonable person could read. Under the table, I pulled out my phone. 8:45 p.m. The toast would be next. I opened my email app. I pulled up 3 drafts. Same subject line. Urgent. Ethics violation requiring immediate review. Same attachments. 173 pieces of evidence. 3 recipients. The General Counsel of Brennan Logistics, the company's ethics hotline, and George Miller, the CEO's executive assistant, who owed me a favor from 5 years ago. I didn't send them. Not yet. I needed one more piece. The final, undeniable piece. Dessert plates were cleared. Sean stood up, tapping his wine glass. The room went quiet. I want to thank everyone for being here, he began. Turning 40. It's a milestone. And sharing it with the people who matter most means everything. His eyes scanned the table. His gym friends. His colleagues. His brother. His eyes never landed on me. But I especially want to recognize someone who's been instrumental in my growth this past year. He turned to Michelle. His voice softened. Michelle, you've pushed me to exceed every expectation. You've helped me reach for goals I didn't think were possible. You've made me into the professional I've always wanted to be. You invested in me. You believed in me. And I honestly don't know where I'd be without your guidance and support. He raised his glass. To my honored guest, my mentor, to Michelle Castellano. The room applauded. Glasses clinked. And then Michelle stood up. She walked to Sean. She didn't shake his hand. She wrapped both arms around him, pulled him close, and pressed her face against his neck. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds. My phone was already in my hand, camera app open. Sean's arms went around her waist, his eyes closed, his whole body relaxed into the hug. It was familiar. The photographer's flash went off. Click, click, click. He got it from multiple angles. I opened my email app. I attached the seating chart photos. I attached the video of the 7-second hug. My finger hovered over the send button. This was it. The point of no return. Sean's career in jeopardy. Michelle's likely over. Our marriage definitely done. I clicked send at exactly 9:43 p.m. Then I finished my wine, set down my glass, and excused myself to the restroom. I stood at the sink, reapplied my lipstick. My hands were perfectly steady. My reflection looked calm, composed. I checked my phone. All 3 emails. Delivered. When I returned 10 minutes later, the energy in the room had shattered. People were whispering. Michelle was at the head of the table, her phone face up, screen lit with an incoming call. She stared at it. Then she answered. I watched her face transform, confident, to confused, to concerned, to absolutely, gut-wrenchingly horrified. All in 10 seconds. Yes, this is Michelle Castellano, she said, standing abruptly. What? No, I'm at a dinner. Can this wait until Monday? Apparently, it couldn't. She walked into the hallway, her voice rising. I could see her pacing, gesturing frantically. Sean watched her go, completely bewildered. When Michelle finally came back, her face was pale, her hands were shaking. I have to go, she said, her voice cracking. There's been an emergency at the office. Sean shot up. What kind of emergency? Do you need help? Should I come with you? No! The word was sharp, panicked. She softened her tone. No, Sean, you stay. Enjoy your birthday. This doesn't concern you. But the way she looked at him told a different story. Her eyes screamed, this concerns you entirely. This is going to destroy everything. She left. The party died. Within 30 minutes, everyone was gone. It was just me, Sean, and Denzel sitting in the ruins. What the hell was that about? Sean said, looking at me like I'd have the answer. I buttoned my coat, walked over to him, kissed his cheek. I could smell the Tom Ford. Happy birthday, darling, I whispered. Then I left him there. She fled. The party was a disaster. His face was priceless. You know who's never blindsided by justice? Our subscribers. They get these stories delivered right to them, so they're always one step ahead. Don't be a Sean. Don't be left confused in the wreckage. Hit that red button. Or are you just going to sit there and let life happen to you? Let me know in the comments if that's really your plan. I drove home alone. The house was dark. Sean didn't come home. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. to sunlight and Sean breathing beside me. He must have crawled in late. My phone rang at exactly 7:15 a.m. Unknown number. Jane Brennan speaking. Mrs. Brennan, this is James Whitfield, attorney for Michelle Castellano. His voice was smooth, expensive. I'm calling regarding serious allegations you filed against my client that have caused significant damage to her reputation and career. He threatened me with every legal remedy available. Baseless accusations, malicious intent. He demanded a public retraction and an apology. I let him finish. I took a sip of my coffee. First, counselor, I said, my voice calm. Nothing I sent was false. Every piece of evidence is documented and verifiable. Second, I didn't file allegations. I reported a workplace ethics concern to the appropriate corporate authorities, which is encouraged under Brennan Logistics' own employee handbook. Third, if your client's reputation is damaged, it's because she chose to engage in inappropriate conduct with a subordinate and then display it publicly, in front of witnesses and a professional photographer. I didn't destroy her reputation. She did that herself. I just made sure people saw it. There was a long pause. I could hear him rustling papers. Mrs. Brennan, we will pursue this aggressively. I almost smiled. Please do. I look forward to discovery, where we'll subpoena all communications between your client and my husband, all expense reports, all text messages. I'm sure that will go wonderfully for her. Oh, and counselor, you might want to advise your client that threatening the spouse of her subordinate employee is probably not going to help her case with the ethics investigation, but you do what you think is best. I hung up. By noon, I'd separated our bank accounts. The house was already in my name. My parents had helped with the down payment years ago. I called my divorce attorney. Sean came downstairs at 2:00 p.m. He looked like hell. Jane, he said, his voice cracking. Jane, something happened. The company called. They've placed me on administrative leave, pending an investigation. I just looked at him. Waited. They're saying someone filed a complaint, that there's evidence. They suspended Michelle yesterday. Jane, they fired her. They terminated her, escorted out by security this morning. He stared at me, desperate. What did you do? I closed my laptop. I walked to the side table and picked up the manila envelope I'd prepared. I made you a promise, Sean, I said, handing it to him. I told you that if you made her your honored guest, you'd regret it. You didn't believe me. That was your choice. He opened it. He saw the first page, divorce petition. What is this? You're divorcing me? Over inviting my boss to my birthday? I walked back and picked up a single 8:10 photo. The photographer had sent a preview gallery last night. This one was the most damning. The 7-second hug, his eyes closed, her face in his neck. I handed it to him. I watched the color drain from his face. I'm divorcing you, I said, because you had an inappropriate relationship with your boss and humiliated me publicly, because you prioritized her over me for months, because you stopped seeing me as your wife and started seeing me as an obstacle. I looked at the man who was now a stranger. I need you to leave. This is my house. The locks have already been changed. Your things are packed in boxes in the garage. Denzel called. He screamed at me. What the hell did you do to my brother? Hello, Denzel. I'm divorcing him. Your brother spent 6 months having an affair with his boss. I gave him one warning. He crossed it. These are the consequences. He said you were paranoid, that it was professional. Did he show you the photograph, Denzel? The 7-second hug? Did he tell you about the hotel charges or the midnight texts? No? Then he lied to you just like he's been lying to me. I hung up. My best friend Chloe called. She'd talked to Sean. Jane, honey, don't you think you overreacted? Destroying 2 careers? It just seems so extreme just because you were jealous. He'd gotten to her too, painted me as the unstable, vindictive wife. He said those were all innocent, she said, that you were reading too much into it. I see, I said quietly. I need some space, Chloe. I hung up. The company, however, was grateful. I met with George Miller from the CEO's office. Jane, he said, your report triggered an immediate review. What you documented, it wasn't an isolated incident. Since Ms. Castellano's termination, 3 other employees have come forward with their own complaints. Similar patterns. You uncovered a massive problem. By Tuesday, the story was everywhere. Someone leaked the photos to a workplace gossip blog called Corporate Confessions. The headline, "When Mentorship Crosses the Line, the Birthday Dinner That Ended 2 Careers." There they were. The 7-second hug, the leaning in, the hand on his arm. And there, in the background of one shot, was me, sitting in the middle of the table. The blogger described my expression as the wife who knew exactly what was happening and was already planning her next move. They had no idea how right they were. On Wednesday, Michelle's husband called me, David Miller. "I filed for divorce yesterday," he said, his voice cracking. "I found the texts, 8 months of them. She saved your husband's name under Sarah from marketing. She admitted everything, said it started last summer. Mrs. Brennan, thank you. If you hadn't reported it, I might have never known." Sean finally came to get his boxes. He stood in my kitchen. "Jane, I'm sorry. I swear, I never slept with her. It was just emotional." "It doesn't matter, Sean. Physical, emotional, you cheated, you humiliated me. Take your things and leave." He begged, he pleaded, he said it wasn't physical, but the betrayal was total. "I got my justice, you can get yours too. The first step is arming yourself with knowledge. By subscribing to stories that empower you. Don't end up a victim. Every second you wait, another story of betrayal happens. Click subscribe. If you made it this far and still haven't, I genuinely want to know why. Go to the comments right now and explain yourself. What are you afraid of? A week later, Sean called me, completely spiraling. "Jane, they fired me. Brennan Logistics just terminated my employment. I have no income, no references. Everyone knows because of that blog post. How am I supposed to live?" I listened to him panic. When he finally stopped for breath, I said, "You'll figure it out, Sean. The same way I would have had to figure it out if you'd left me for Michelle. You'll apply for unemployment. You'll take a lower-level job somewhere far from here. Or you won't. Either way, it's no longer my problem to solve." I hung up. 6 months passed. The divorce was finalized. The terms were exactly as I'd proposed. The house was mine. The investments were mine. Sean left with his car and his boxes of clothes. I sold the house. I bought a new apartment across town. It's smaller, but it's all mine. George Miller called. Michelle is blacklisted in the industry. Her husband David is seeking full custody of their teenage kids. Sean? He moved to another state. Denzel got him some low-level job in middle management. My friend Chloe called in December. She apologized. "He manipulated the story, Jane. I should have known better." We're rebuilding. And me? I got promoted at work. My boss is appreciated an employee who understands the value of documentation and ethical procedure. I've even started dating again, carefully. People still ask me what I did that night at Marcello's, what I said to make Michelle lose control. I always give them the same answer. I didn't make her do anything. I just made sure that when she and my husband chose to cross every professional and personal line, there were consequences. Some people call it revenge. I call it justice. And either way, I'm finally free. My favorite moment? When Jane sat calmly at that dinner, phone in hand, sending those 3 documented emails while Sean toasted Michelle as his honored guest. What was your most satisfying moment in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more compelling stories of consequences and courage just like this one, subscribe and hit that notification bell. You never want to miss what's coming next.